Hello, everybody. This is your daily real estate exam practice question. So let's jump right into it. Another great Facebook submission. It's the question reads as such: an example of a contract terminated due to the inability to perform would be one in which the. So let's read what it's asking you. So a contract that is terminated. So contract that is terminated due to the inability to perform. That's where people are probably getting tripped up on this one. So let's jump into the answers. A purchaser had suffered financial reverses so that she could not make payment as required by the contract. If you enter into a contract and there is no contingency involved, okay, there's no contingency that says that you can cancel it if you suffer a financial loss and you cannot make the payments, then you're still bound to that. Okay, you are still bound to that. So unless there is a financial contingency, and a contingency is basically something that needs to happen in order for the contract to go forward. And if that thing does or does not happen, it could possibly terminate the contract. So there's no wording here in regards to a contingency. So we're going to cross A off as an answer. Okay? Because they would still be, the contract wouldn't be terminated because of this. Okay? B, the seller had died. Okay, let's just read had died after the contract became binding but before closing. So the contract's not going to be terminated. It's going to be legally binding to the heirs and the estate. Okay. There are situations where this could be renegotiated. This could be something where there's more nuances involved in this. There are layers, but this isn't it isn't the best example of a contract that will be terminated automatically due to the inability to perform, because the ability to perform is still there, binding on the estate and the heirs. So B, not the answer. So we're left with C and D. We're going to go to D because I know C is the answer. D, the property had been severely damaged by fire after the contract became binding but before closing. People were probably getting tripped up with this one and thinking that because the home had been damaged, okay, that the contract would now be terminated because they're thinking there is no home there. Well, what happens is the insurance companies would step in, and this would be a situation where there could be still performance, and the contract wouldn't automatically terminate. It wouldn't be, property's burnt down, because let me give you an example of probably a time that really wouldn't matter is in certain homes where there's in certain areas where there's gentrification going on and there's a lot of teardowns. Property being severely damaged and burnt down might actually save people some time in demolition. They would be like, okay, great, fantastic. So again, just because the property burnt down does not mean the contract's going to be terminated due to the inability to perform, right? So that wouldn't happen. Okay, D is not the answer. So let's look at C and let's see why that is the answer, right? So the seller had contracted for the sale of the entire property, boom, without the knowledge or consent of the other joint tenant. Okay, so basically, here's the thing. If the seller had signed a contract for the sale of their interest in the property without the consent of the other joint tenant, that would be absolutely A-okay, not a problem. But because the seller had contracted for the sale of the entire property without the knowledge or consent of the other joint tenant, basically you have a contract that absolutely cannot go anywhere, okay? Cannot go anywhere because it is basically an invalid contract. It's going to be terminated due to the fact that you couldn't perform on it if you wanted to because the consent of the other joint tenant, the knowledge and consent is not given, and you need that to have a legal binding contract for the entire property when you hold title as joint tenants. And guys, that is it for today. Have a great one.